Assalamu alaikum. Welcome new episode program guest from Palestine. Today we have a special guest, Finbarr, or as we call you, Finbarr.
Yeah.
Hi, how are you, Finbarr?
I'm good.
How's things? All good. How's
Yeah.
your day today?
Good.
That's
good.
bad.
It's okay. Nice and relaxed. Nice and relaxed.
Thank God. So, Finbarr, could you please tell me about yourself, about what you're doing, where you're growing, where you're from?
Okay. Well, my name is Finbarr MacGabhan. I'm the chairperson of the Ireland-Palestine Solidarity Campaign in County Clare at the moment. I originally came from Dublin, and I suppose from a Palestinian point of view, I always knew there was something wrong in Palestine. Even as a child, I knew there was something not right, you know. So we moved down from Dublin. I remember I worked in Dublin in a factory, and there was somebody leaving the factory. And we said to him, where are you going? What are you going to do next? And he said that he's going to a kibbutz to do charity work on a kibbutz.
Yeah.
And there was silence. There were about 8 or 10 of us who asked who were there.
Yeah.
And it was just silence as people went,
Yeah.
there's something wrong. But I didn't quite understand what was wrong, but I knew there was something wrong, that this is on stolen land. So when I got married, we couldn't afford to live in Dublin, so we moved down to County Clare and we got settled here, and things are good. And after a few years, I joined a political party, and the political party would be left-wing, so we all supported Palestine as well, and I started to read, and I started to explore more and understand more. And then in 2010, the Minister for Defence for the Dublin government, for the Irish government, was from County Clare. And there was a contract for ammunition to supply to the Irish Army, and one of the companies that applied for that contract was an Israeli company, a state-run company. And we thought that was wrong, so we thought we should go and protest. The problem was, we were all in a political party. That's how we knew each other. That's how this decision came up. And if we went out to protest as a political party, it would look like political point scoring, that we were only doing this for political purposes.
So your awareness become to Palestinian cause since 2010, after the
Even before that, I mean, 2007, 2008.
And Intifada time.
Yeah. I mean, you could see that children were being gunned down in the streets. You had Israeli ministers on television saying a stone could kill you. A stone is very dangerous, so we have to shoot these children, and all these kind of ridiculous excuses for why they were acting in such a barbarous manner. And I suppose, being Irish, the relationship with colonialism, the relationship of the British, and it's closer than perhaps many people think. The same forces that occupied our country then went on to British mandate Palestine. The Black and Tans who were here, who were notorious for their brutality and retributions. So if the IRA at that time, if the Irish at that time attacked British soldiers and killed some of the British soldiers, the Black and Tans would come and just drag people out of their homes and shoot them dead at the side of the street. These were, atrocious crimes at that time, and they were redeployed to Palestine after they had been defeated here. So we saw a lot of relationships like that. We saw that politicians like Winston Churchill, but plenty of others as well, would make excuses for why they needed to treat Palestinians badly, but they were the same excuses that they used in Ireland, that we were savages, that we didn't know how to run our own society, that they were trying to help us, they were trying to bring civilization to Ireland, and all we could do, because we didn't understand, was react with violence. And then they said the same thing about Palestine, and they did the same things. So that became very clear from an early age. But it was really around about that time that I started to see how things really, really were. So from an early age, I was aware there was something wrong. But it was in the time of the Intifada, around the time of, even before that, I suppose, Land Day. You remember a lot of people marched on the fence from Jordan, and they were just gunned down. And the Intifada as well, like, where people were just shot dead in the street. We saw children throwing stones at tanks, and then being machine gunned, and all kinds of things. And and we had those excuses from Israeli ministers about stones are very dangerous, we have to kill these children. It was just outrageous. It was so obviously lies. And they were challenged many, many times with silly things like, well, why don't you throw stones back at them if stones are so much more dangerous than guns are? But of course, you never got an answer to that. And so it became very, very clear that this was a very, very one-sided conflict, that it's clear that there's an ethnic cleansing program on. As I looked more into it, I found that the first UN resolution against ethnic cleansing to demand that refugees are allowed to return to their homes and that they're reinstated and their homes are rebuilt was in 1948. So this has clearly been an ethnic cleansing policy, an ethnic cleansing project right from day one. Anybody who says differently, I think, is either deluded or they're lying.
Yeah.
And so it became clear that somebody, the famous somebody, was going to have to do something. But it took a little bit more time before that somebody was me and some other people around me. So that was 2010, which I explained already.
Yeah.
And we wanted to go out onto the street, and we just thought the last thing we want to do is create a situation where Palestine becomes the issue of one party and not other parties. We need broad support from everyone for this. And so I contacted the Ireland Palestine Solidarity Campaign, and I spoke to the then chairperson, and I asked, would they mind if we went out on the street, put in their name? And they said yes, and they, no problem. They supplied us with leaflets, they supplied us with posters and all that kind of stuff. And we held a protest outside the office of the minister. And we delivered a letter to him demanding that the contract should not be given to an Israeli company, because that Israeli company are involved in the production of ammunition and other equipment that is murdering children and women in Palestine and men in Palestine. People forget men as though they somehow are justifiable to kill them. None of it is justifiable.
Because it's more sensitive, you know. In the war, it's usual thing to man to die, you know.
Yeah.
But not usual to kill child, to kill women. You know, last war in Gaza, over than 20,000 kids died.
Yeah.
And a lot of women, this is not usual, you know, this is not fair.
Yeah.
So this is the point. Yeah. We forget the man, yeah. Why we forget?
Why we
because
forget the man?
it's usual. It's usual, but the not usual thing, the kids and the woman.
Yeah.
Because of that, we have, you know.
Yeah, you kind of,
Confused and not confusing.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
nobody deserves to die. Nobody deserves to be killed in Gaza. It's as simple as that. Nobody deserves to die in Palestine. It's as simple as that. But after the protest, the then chair, David Landy, the then chair of the Ireland Palestine Solidarity Campaign, asked me if I would join, and asked if I would produce a group in Clare. So I already had my group. It was the other people who were in the political party with me. Within about a year, I started to realise we'd be out on the street for something for the party, and then we'd be out on the street, exactly the same group, out on the street for Palestine. And people could see that. And I realised that people wouldn't treat us seriously as a pro-Palestine group, because they would see us as a political group. And they would say, you're only doing that to score points off the government because you're in opposition, that's all. And so I asked within the party, I I think I need to break away and form a pro-Palestine group, an Ireland Palestine Solidarity Campaign branch without the party involved. And everybody was very understanding, they agreed. And for a couple of years there, I could be out on the street with just one or two other people, and that's it. But we just kept going and kept going.
Yeah.
And of course, then we ran into further difficulties in 2012, I think it was, 13, with the latest invasion of Gaza by the Israelis. And I remembered that I think it was on that occasion that the whole thing started, because they killed a member of Hamas who was carrying the peace proposal to bring it to Islamic Jihad, to bring it to the other groups. And he met with the Israelis, they signed together, he left, and they blew him up with a missile.
You know, Israelis, they are doing same thing, you know, they says we want to go for peace and this and that, but they never do that, you know.
Yeah.
And you says now they killed the leader for Hamas, he want to find solution, you know, he tried to find solution, try to keep the peace on Gaza, on in the West Bank. But they will ignore it, you know.
Yeah.
This is their point. They always try to make it same thing on the last war. Now in Gaza, you see the ceasefire now. Always you say Netanyahu. He says, "Oh, we will stop the negotiation. We will stop do that, and we will stop send our group to Qatar to make the negotiation." Why? Because they want to war to continue. You know, they don't want to stop the killing the kids and women and all of these things. So this is the point. They are very good on this point, you know. Yeah.
And unfortunately, the media play into that. The media go along with whatever is the story that's released. through the mainstream Western press, through Washington, through the BBC, through agencies like that. They just go along with whatever they're told, and they seem to have no memory at all. And like over 120 people have been killed in Gaza, some of them women and children, since the ceasefire. Imagine if 120 people in Israel had been killed since the ceasefire by Hamas.
Yeah.
It would be all over the world news. Everyone would know. And the ceasefire would be over. That would be it.
Yeah.
So at that time anyway, they killed the peace negotiator. We realised this is not good. People started to come onto the streets for us. In the quiet years, a few people might turn up for Nakba, Prisoners' Day, Land Day, that sort of thing. Generally speaking, when we first started out on our own, myself and just one or two others who were not in the party, there was a petition for Dunn stores to tell Dunn stores to stop stocking Israeli goods. And
it's work, Finbarr.
Pardon?
It's work.
Yeah.
You know, when you're going to, I see many people in social media, on Instagram, they're asking for boycott, you know, with Israeli products. And we see many video on Instagram, especially. They just remove the Israeli products like wipes and avocado and fruit and all those things and just put in the trolley, take it out. But do you think this is work? It's important to people to know what's to increase the awareness of BDS for the people. Do you think it's important?
Well, that petition, the Dunn's petition, was an eye-opener for me because Dunn's removed all the products when they got the petition. And a couple of weeks later, they put them all back.
All branched?
Quietly put them all back.
From all branched?
Yeah. Wow. So they took them all away, but then they put them back. As soon as the public looked away, they put them all back. And then we had a very, very hard job to do to tell people, we know you signed the petition. We know they took the things away, but now they're back and we have to start again. And people by then thought that they had finished, that they'd done this job. So yeah, an awful lot of those things. There's a whole range of actions that are required constantly. We need constant vigilance. People need to watch for the number of products that are on the shelves that have Israeli brand names on them, like Carmel. I've seen Carmel melons that are product of Brazil. They're not a product of Brazil. Yeah. They come from occupied Palestine. We all know that. Medjool dates. We've all seen Medjool dates.
They will change the name, you know. They say this is from Jordan. And I see many paper for IPS, and especially we are in Ramadan now, so the dates will be more. You know, I see many paper on to explain what they are trying to doing. You know, they will change the name of the products. They will not mention Israel, made in Israel now. They try to make from Jordan Valley, or they will hide. You know. Yeah. So why do you think the BDS is important?
Well, I think it's a democratic and a peaceful way for us to influence international affairs. We've seen the Great March of Return as a prime example. The Intifada is another example. We've seen where strikes are met with violence, where peaceful marches to the fence are met with violence. The original Land Day, people from Jordan came to the fence, they were gunned down. So we've seen that violence is met with violence, but peace is met with violence. Legal actions are met with threats or with violence or annexation. Even the recognition by the Irish state of the state of Palestine. Netanyahu vowed to annex more territory belonging to Palestine and build more settlements. So in return for a diplomatic gesture from the Irish state, what we got in return was a real ethnic cleansing, stealing of land. And so for Palestine, they're not going to be able to do it alone. They're not going to be able to do it on their own. They need international support. And the way that we can provide that international support as I say, it's a peaceful action. It's a democratic action. If anybody thinks that Israel have done enough to bring peace, well, then they can buy Israeli products. If anybody thinks that they haven't, well, then they don't buy Israeli products.
Yeah.
And so I think it's very meaningful from that point of view. And I think in the very early days of the BDS, they used to try to ridicule BDS and say that it won't work and it's rubbish and it's nonsense. But secretly they knew that this could damage them. Yeah. And at one stage they said that the most that the BDS movement could ever hope to achieve would be a 3% drop in Israeli GDP. But a 3% drop is a recession. Yeah. That's an economic recession. Amount, yeah. That's serious trouble for them. And as you say, they don't joke about it anymore. They try to say that it's a form of terrorism. They try to change the names, as you say. So they're scared. They know. But the problem is, with the BDS campaign, you have to reach out to every single person who's going to go into a shop and ask every single person not to take that product. So there's a lot of work involved in it. But it's got to be done. It's got to be done. Mm-hmm. And I think that it is definitely the way forward, is to promote overall boycotts. And if you look at the one that we have now, the Teva campaign against pharmacies, Teva is a brand name that nobody even knows. Most people have never heard of it. So you go into a chemist and you bring a prescription from your doctor.
You pick it and go. You don't interested where it's coming from, you know.
They just put it in the bag. In addition, it says on the box that it comes from the Netherlands, but it doesn't come from the Netherlands. They have a warehouse there, but the company is owned in Israel, in Jerusalem. So we know that. So, but the Teva products are a good one, because if we can talk just to the pharmacists and ask them, don't buy them in the first place. Yeah. Nobody knows the brand. Nobody cares. It's not like a boycott. There are other products that are household names that we don't want people to buy. Mm-hmm. I won't say them on camera, but there are household names that we don't want people to buy. That would be very, very difficult to convince everybody not to buy this thing they've always bought. But nobody's ever heard of Teva. Nobody knows what it is. Yeah. If a pharmacist just chooses to put a different product in the bag when you bring in your prescription, who's to know the difference? No. And so we asked them. So that's an easier ask. And I mean, they earn millions every year from generic medications that they sell all over the world to people who don't know that they're supporting this genocide, they're supporting this ethnic cleansing. And so the boycott campaign allows us to reach out to people, talk to people, and show them that with just a few small changes, with just a few small gestures, they can make a real and meaningful difference to the people of Palestine.
And you know, Finbarr, we believe that the boycott is important. So now our page on Instagram, we make a new page. It's called Yalla Ireland.
Yes.
We prepare movies, short silent movie. It's almost maybe 3 minutes about the boycott and how it's important, and we will release it very soon.
Excellent.
So
Excellent.
we believe that the boycott is very important, you know, and we try to improve the awareness of that for the other people. Yeah, because it's really, really important. You know?
I think it's vital. Yeah. And just to give one example of a success that we had, that I was very, very pleased with, because it started here in County Clare. Somebody said to us in the IPSC in Clare that they had a leaflet for Aldi. And in the leaflet for Aldi, it said that in 2 weeks they were going to have soda streams. And soda streams, as you know, they're built in a factory on occupied land. Yeah. Occupied Palestinian land. And so we said, okay, we have to have a campaign. So we contacted head office and we asked our head office to back this campaign, and they did. And I was in university at the time, in the University of Limerick. And after lectures, I would stand up and I would say, can I have everyone's attention, please? And shout out to everyone and ask them to phone Aldi and say, it's outrageous that they're stocking these products, which are supporting genocide in Palestine. And I called into a couple of shops about a week beforehand to ask them, where are you going to put SodaStream products? And they said, why? And I said, because we need to know where to have our protests, because we're all going to protest at all your shops. There's going to be huge protests at all of your shops because you're doing this. And it frightened them. And on the day that they were supposed to have SodaStreams, we turned up at the one in Ennis, and we were handing out leaflets to people in the queue, asking them, don't buy these products, complain to management, tell them what they're doing, tell them they're complicit in genocide. And the management asked us, what are you doing? And I says, we're protesting against the products you have in here. He brought me inside and showed me that there are no SodaStream on the shelf. And I says, where are the SodaStreams? And he said they brought them in, two or three container truckloads full. They were told, put them back on the truck and send them back to Israel. Because they were afraid of protests all across Ireland. Right. So we forced them to bring back all of those. That has to be a couple of million quid that company saw arriving back in their depot, because the people of Ireland will not tolerate that. So we were very, very pleased with that. But fast forward a few years, and Lidl did the same thing. We protested. They wouldn't take them off the shelf. And so we protested outside the shop, and the management came out to complain to us, to tell us to go away, that customers are constantly complaining to them about the SodaStreams. And we said, well done, take away the SodaStreams. We have a right to be here. Your customers have a right to voice their concerns. And so when you look at something like that, when on a day you can turn up and say, this product is in this shop, people will take action and they will react, and the companies will see that. We
And
just need to do more of it.
yeah. And you know what's the reaction of the customer when you give them the brochure or sticker about the boycott? What do you see on their eyes? How they understand the situation?
They understand the situation in Palestine.
Yeah.
Everybody does. Uh, they don't always understand that there are Israeli products on the shelves here. That comes as a shock to a lot of people, and we have to explain to them what products there are. So before we do a protest, we'll usually do a survey and check the shop and see what's in there. But they get quite a surprise when we tell them that there are some plastic molded products like Qatar products, the plastic parts of Stanley tools, that things like this are also from occupied Palestine. They know about some of them, and most people will say, but how can I know? And we say, but read the label.
Read the label, yeah.
And
This
people
is
actually, a light bulb, because they suddenly go, oh, of course.
you know, the people, the people very simple, you know. They don't have enough, maybe they don't have enough awareness of that. So they just pick the item from the shelf and put on the
Yeah.
chart and just move, you know.
We all have busy lives. We all have to feed family.
Yeah.
And they just go and they buy their products and leave. But when you ask them, they take notice. And I think that's a problem with the media as well. Everyone, a lot of people have jobs, a lot of people have children. You come home in the evening time, you want to feed your family, you want to get them to bed, you want to get them up for school the next day. There's no time to sit and watch documentaries. There's no time to sit and listen to everything. So when outlets like the BBC and RTE do it as well, when they talk about things that are happening in Palestine from an Israeli slant, the people just listen to that out of the corner of their ear. They're not paying attention. They just hear this, but then they have to see to the kids and things like that. And so this message comes into their mind, not the message I grew up with, where I had an opportunity to see the news properly, And yet now we have more media because you have social media.
Yeah.
But you can spend your whole day sitting watching cat videos if you choose to.
Actually,
You don't
I think
have to watch the news anymore.
the social media become now a very important channel to people to, because they have another option to see from, not from the news, which controlled by the government and all these things. You can just open your phone on social media. You can search for Gaza page or Palestinian page, and you can see the truth. Actually,
Yeah.
it is not a big deal to handle it. Do you think the media they provide an image of justice?
I don't think so. I think they've gotten. I hate to say they've gotten better, but I think it's because the Israelis have gotten so much worse. Previously, they could ignore an awful lot of things that were coming out of Palestine. They could put an Israeli slant on them much more easily. Now they have to be more cautious. They can see that we're on the streets in very large numbers. They know that. They know that they can't lie anymore as much. They still do it. They still do things like refer to the people held by Hamas as hostages, but the people held by Israel as prisoners, even though there are hundreds more Israeli people who are supposedly prisoners in Israeli jails. They haven't been tried. Many of them are children. One of the only places in the world where children go before a military tribunal and go to prison, even though they're children, they're minors. They don't record these things. And so they take those speaking points. So they report the basic facts, but they slant them carefully, very, very carefully. And words don't end up in a speech by accident. I could say a wrong word now because we're in conversation. If I was writing this down, I would not say a wrong word.
Yeah,
and so each word has to be chosen carefully. And words like prisoners, words like hostages, all that kind of stuff. Instances where you're much more likely to see a profile of an Israeli soldier who just was released from captivity in Gaza than you were about Hussam Abu Sufia. The leader of the PFLP came out of prison. She was in very, very bad condition. Nothing was said about this.
Yeah.
When Hamas release captives, if they look in bad condition, everybody knows. Everybody knows their name. Everybody knows everything about it. And yet you have prisoners who've been released by Hamas who say that they've been treated very well. They suddenly get ignored. And certain media outlets, this is a particularly strong thing, media outlets are not allowed into Gaza. Certain media outlets will report that. Al Jazeera will say, We're reporting from Egypt. We're reporting from Qatar, usually from Qatar, because we're banned from going to Gaza, from Palestine, by the Israeli government. BBC never said anything like that.
Yeah. So you trust Al Jazeera more?
Yes, I would trust Al Jazeera more. I think that many years ago, I started to watch news programs from all around the world, and it was an eye opener. Some of them, like I run a social media page for the Ireland Palestine Solidarity Campaign. I cannot put some of the sources onto that because they can be trustworthy on some issues and not on other issues. So there are news outlets from Turkey, for instance, which I would not share with anybody, but I can get the facts, and then I can go and check those facts and make sure that they're accurate, and I can get the news from a different source. But I wouldn't trust Turkish outlets because perhaps they're connected to Erdogan, perhaps they're not as honest as they could be in a lot of other ways. And I don't want to associate myself with that sort of thing, or my organisation in the IPSC. The same with some Russian news outlets, some Iranian news outlets, even some Latin American outlets.
Yeah.
So, but I can get the bare facts and then I can go and check them. And I think that's a crucial thing. When you start to take the time to research and to check these things, you suddenly find out that an awful lot of what you've been told isn't really the truth. But when you see something on Al Jazeera, if you go and check it, when you see something on Democracy Now! From America, DW from Germany, when you start to look at some of their stories, if you can go and check, you'll find that they are true. And you'll find that these other outlets are not true. So I think in some ways it's a subtle thing, in other ways it's quite blatant. Obviously some of the American news agencies are disgraceful, just disgraceful. But I think that when we can explain to people, they do understand. And something that changed, particularly this time that the Gaza is under attack, but even a little bit prior to that, maybe the nation state law, maybe around that sort of time. Before that, people would come to us at marches and they'd say, do you know what you should do? And so interacting with too many people at a march, you end up with everybody else's jobs to do. But they don't know anybody else. They don't know who to come to with their ideas. They don't know who to come to try to form a new organisation. But now people come to us and they say, I want to do this and my friends are going to help me. My family are going to help me. Everyone knows. And when they talk to their friends, when they talk to their family, everybody wants to be involved.
And you know, it's very important to have awareness about this thing, you know, about the family. How about your family? They are interested about the Palestinian cause.
Yeah.
Your children or your...
Well, I've no children.
No children.
No children.
Your brothers,
my
your
family,
wife. Yeah. They are interested.
Everybody. Everybody's interested. And as I said to you before we started filming, one of my brothers served in the Lebanon three times, with the UN peacekeeping forces. So he saw what the Israelis do. He saw the murder committed in Lebanon.
He saw the truth.
Yeah, he saw the truth. And I mean, I have several times. You can Google it. You can look it up. Who killed Irish soldiers in Lebanon? And if you Google that, you're more likely to find a few soldiers towards the end who were killed by Lebanese militias, Hamas or Hezbollah or their predecessors. But in fact, the vast majority of soldiers killed in Lebanon were killed by the Israelis. And these are peacekeeping forces from Ireland who are doing their best to keep the peace. And my brother saw that firsthand. He saw what was happening. And it was a habit of soldiers who served in Lebanon. When they get leave, when they have some time off, they go to the Holy Land. I'm not a Roman Catholic, but a lot of people from Ireland would be. And so they would go to Bethlehem, they would go to Jerusalem, they would go and see these places. And then they interact with Israelis. And then they start to see. And one of the games that they used to play with Israelis when they're being shown around, they would ask, is this the occupied territory or where is the occupied territory? And the Israelis would just start screaming that it's all their land and the Arabs have to be purged, they have to be killed. They would openly admit these things to people who are tourists in their country. That it's our country, we're taking it, we're killing them all, we're driving them all out. And so people came back with those stories, you know, and people in my family, one person in my family. And so everybody, like tonight, I had other things I was supposed to do, but I told my wife, it's for Palestine, and she went, go.
Thanks, O'Hare, you know. And you have been visit Palestine before, or any country in the
No.
Middle East?
No, I haven't been able to go.
There is plan in the future.
I don't know. I have some family commitments that mean that I have to be around all the time. But the other thing is money. I don't have any money. I've never had any money.
No, it's not costly. You know, the people there, they are very kind. You know, they are very kind, and they are and their hospitality very good. You know, so
Yeah.
when they are know you are from Ireland, you will not believe me. You will not spend any dollar or any euro there. So lot of people, Irish people, been in Palestine, and they says like that. You know, the people they are very kind. Maybe they are fighting when you want to pay the bill or something. No, they will fight. You know, they will not accept that. But inshallah, you know, we'll be there in Palestine when Palestine become free, free land.
Yeah.
This is this is our chance to be there. You know.
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so.
I hope so. And I hope that is what comes out of what's happening now. I hope that, like, for a number of years, my fear was that there would be no Palestine left by the time the world woke up to what was really happening. It's so bad now.
But
that
you know,
the whole
Finbarr,
world can see
the last war, it's wake up. You know, wake up.
the whole world can
cause.
see it now.
The Palestinian cause almost forget. You know, nobody talk about it. Nobody just discuss about it.
Yeah.
But the last war, a lot of people they have, it's, you know, open eye again to the Palestinian cause.
Yeah.
And that's good. You know.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
This is
if
the
you
benefit.
if you look before that, you had the Abraham Accords, and so the whole plan was normalize relations with not Algeria. Algeria are quite good, but Morocco. But they normalize relations with Morocco by you accept our occupation of Palestine and we'll accept your occupation of Western Sahara. So it's war crime for war crime.
Yeah,
We'll help each other with our war crimes and normalize with other countries in return for, in return for weapons deals from the United States and all kinds of things, incentives to get countries to normalize so that they can normalize with Saudi Arabia, they can normalize with other countries, and eventually they can just leave the Palestinians to die and move on and just leave them in an open air prison. That's never going to happen again.
Yeah.
Never. The world won't stand for it. And I think that we've really moved on and people can see there must be a proper solution that brings peace and justice to Palestine. It's as simple as that. And in the IPSC, we don't endorse any model of what that will look like. We say that whatever ensures peace and justice, social justice, human rights for the people of Palestine that they accept is good enough for us. That's it. We're not going to be prescriptive.
Yeah.
And people can see somebody like Trump and the things that he has said, outrageous things that he has said. And people, of course, have seen the International Court of Justice rulings, the International Criminal Court rulings, and they got much more publicity. Because when you look back, it's not that long ago that her name won't come to me. Noura Erakat. She's an American Palestinian lawyer. And she took legal actions to the international courts over the apartheid wall, over the siege of Gaza and the destruction of the airport, the right of return for refugees. And she won every case. The international courts have already ruled that all these things are criminal offences. The occupation of East Jerusalem, all these things are illegal under international law. It's already been ruled. And nobody knows. Nobody takes any notice. And again, to go back to your point, nobody knows because the media don't tell them.
Yeah.
If the media choose not to tell them, then how will you know? How will you find out?
Yeah.
And so people don't know these things. Now they do. And I was speaking to somebody just recently, and I said I had to drive to Dublin on the day when the International Court of Justice made the ruling on genocide, the South Africa case, plausible genocide. And so I was able to listen to the whole court proceeding. I was able to listen to the whole judgment on the way to Dublin and listening to it on the headphones. And I was talking to somebody recently and I told them, and they says, oh, we all sat and watched it on television. Everybody sat. So everybody has seen this. Everybody knows.
The world changed now, you know.
Yeah.
Everything changed. And what do you think about Trump's plan for Gaza? Gaza Trump.
On the
It's
one
funny.
hand, on the one hand, it's a joke. But it worries me. And one of the things, I think that sometimes we have to be careful. And I think that sometimes we do a disservice to the people of Palestine. And I think that we've done it this time. I think people have said far too much they've said the people of Palestine, the people of Gaza would not leave. But the people of Gaza were trapped. They were trapped and they were bombed and they were murdered. And we can never get away from the fact that they were trapped in an area and deliberately massacred. My fear is that they'll do something like bomb the Rafah crossing, bomb the checkpoints along the Egyptian border, and then start carrying a massacre. And it will actually force the people out. And I think that that's a possibility. If you're going to die, you have to move.
But do you think the Palestinian people, they will leave their country, they will leave their land?
I think some of them will not. I've seen a lot of footage of people who returned to northern Gaza after.
They tend to destroy.
But they did leave northern Gaza. And when they returned, they said, this is my home. I'll set up a tent on my rubble.
Exactly.
It is my rubble.
Yeah.
And I'll stay here.
I will stay there.
I'll stay there. But it worries me that if they can force enough people out, maybe they can seize it. And I fear for that.
Oh, for me,
But
I don't think
that the
so.
world woke up.
We know the people of Gaza, you know, in our country, in Jordan, we have some people from Gaza. We know their mind. They're very district, you know. They're very district. They will not do that. Believe me. And
Okay.
you will
That's
see
a
that.
reassurance. That's a
You will see that. Yeah.
I do see that people from Palestine who have been forced out, whose families were forced out during the Nakba and the Naksa and things like that. I see in them, because I've seen documentaries about them, that they don't consider themselves to be from Beirut. They are from Jerusalem, or they're from Hebron, they're from Ramallah, or from Gaza. And even the next generation, children don't see themselves as from Jordan. They see themselves as from Palestine.
We pass
And
the
that lives in
awareness
their
to
hearts.
our children.
Yeah, I think that's very, very important. And it's very encouraging. It's very encouraging. And so I have half the time I laugh at Trump, half the time I have fear. So it's too...
He's crazy.
I think it's too worrying.
We cannot
It's
accept,
too worrying.
you can't accept anything from him, you know.
Yeah.
And Finbarr, through the campaign and activity which we are doing, like march and Shannon protest and all these things, what's the challenge, or what's the challenge you face on it, you know? What's the difficult? That
I suppose the difficulty is that people might tire. You know what I mean? Might become tired after a while. That's the thing I fear. And I've feared that many times. I feared it when the invasion of Gaza first began, and we could see that it was an ethnic cleansing, that it was genocide. But then Christmas came, and I thought maybe people won't come after Christmas. Maybe people won't come after the New Year, but they did. And then we saw the first ceasefires, and I thought maybe people won't come now, but they did. And then we saw the second ceasefires, just to exchange dead and all that kind of stuff. And I thought maybe they won't come again, but they did. And people, but that's what I fear. That's what I fear, is that people will start to become tired. I won't. I'll just, you know, if it's me on the street on my own, I'll stay there.
I see that.
But there are other people who are the same. And I remember somebody said to me recently, I asked, how did you become involved? And she said, you put up posters around the town. I didn't even remember that I'd put up posters. This was years and years ago. And she says, I saw the posters and I said, oh, I'll go along to that.
Wow.
But what happened was, in previous campaigns, in previous times that people turned out, we could see who are the people who always turn up every week, who are the people who come and say, can I help with things? Who are the people who always want to help, always want to be there, always, and speak to people the right way, explain things properly and clearly. We could see who the good people were, you know? And so years ago, we formed a committee of those, just a handful of those people, so that we know, no matter what happens, we'll still have those people, you know? There will still be a core of people. And as I was saying to you earlier on, what's happened on this occasion and on previous occasions, people are going away and they're forming their own group, and they're looking to see what interests them. And so you have, I know you introduced, or you interviewed Carol from East Clare for Palestine. So she formed a group with some other people out in East Clare, because it's a long way to travel to Ennis, so she does it there. You have groups like the North Clare Artists, who are all artists and painters and sculptors. They got together and they had art exhibition for Palestine, and they acted together as a group. You have the BDS movement, BDS Clare, which is based out in West Clare because it's a long way to travel in, and they do some of the BDS actions and protests at shops, removing things like from the shelves, like you said. So I think that that's what's going to keep it going, is that people have their own part to play, and they can see what that part is, and they have their own group around them. And I think that that's very, very encouraging for people, you know?
Yeah.
So that gives me hope.
Yeah. And Finbarr, what is your message for the Palestinian people?
That in all truth and fairness, the human rights and the justice that they are fighting for is for all of us. These are human values. We cannot allow a situation where people can be treated in this way. We can't, I don't want to live in a world where the Palestinian people have been displaced, have faced ethnic cleansing, have faced genocide. And so I think that they're standing on the front lines for peace and justice for the world. I think that they are the ambassadors of human rights for all of us. And I think that we will stand by them no matter what. We will stand with them right until they have their rights, their freedom, their independence. Mm-hmm. And as we say, from the river to the sea, a case of whatever works for everyone between the river and the sea, whatever brings freedom to you in Palestine, whatever part of Palestine, whatever area, Gaza, West Bank, whatever it is, mm-hmm. we will stand by you. We'll stand by you until we get it. And to people like you, this is your second home. You're home now, and welcome.
I must welcome. And really, I feel it's second home. Really.
Yeah.
You know, when we reach here, it was difficult. You know, when you just arrive to country, you don't know anyone there, and you just, you know, after 2-3 days, I meet the people on the march on Saturday.
Yeah.
I really feel happy. Really, I feel something different. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I meet the people, when they just talk to us and chatting with us, and you know, we start have a relation, we make a friend together. You know, you are at home. You know, same brother and sisters, and you know, a lot of people, they are very kind, very nice here. Yeah, this is the most important thing happened to us. Really, we don't feel that we are alone here. Yeah.
I remember you dancing in the street.
Yeah, I remember that day when we make the dabka. It was amazing, yeah?
Yeah, that was great.
About the culture, yeah. And by the end, big thanks for Finbarr to be our guest today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Big thanks for the people who will like, share, and subscribe our channel. Big thanks for Jamal behind the camera. Have a good day. Bye-bye. Hello, thank you for watching the episode. My name is Muhammad. My friend Jamal is behind the camera. We have many ideas for creating contents, but we need your support to develop them. Even it's just a small help, it will be useful. Scan the code and click on the support link for more details. Thank you.